Father, we thank you for the day and for your goodness to us. God, I ask that you would guide and direct in all that we do. Help this time to be beneficial and profitable. God, help us to learn what you have for us today. We ask in your name, amen. All right. So we've got the Ten Commandments. It, as we've mentioned before we started into this and then in the first week, has become, parenthesis, once again, close parenthesis, a flashpoint in society. There are court cases pending regarding the Ten Commandments in schools. There are court cases having been decided regarding the Ten Commandments in schools. It's in the news on a regular basis regarding the Ten Commandments in schools, especially when Christian teachers say that they don't think they belong in school. That makes headlines. And so it's something that shows up regularly. And they show up regularly outside of the news and outside of schools, and sometimes they show up where you would least expect them. As you're looking around and you see the Ten Commandments posted somewhere, or the Ten Commandments that are part of an architecture somewhere, and you say, well, I didn't expect to see that here. And that's because that they have been a part of, say, the framework of society for a couple thousand years. And now we are in an age where we're smarter than everybody else was. They don't belong there. And that's kind of what we're dealing with. As we look at the Ten Commandments, we roll into commandment number 5, and there's a transition here. The commandments transition from man's relationship with God to man's relationship with fellow man. Man's relationship with his neighbors. And go back to the discussion that Christ had when he was asked, well, who's my neighbor? And basically, it's everybody you come in contact with. And that's what this deals with here. Now, the relationship with God is the priority. That's got to be right. But that doesn't minimize the importance of the relationship with man. That is still important. First God, then family, then others. And they've got to be right in that order. If they're out of order, or if one's not right, then we're not right. And so we need to keep all that in mind. So we're transitioning from looking at my walk with God and relationship with him to my walk with man and my relationship with him in the eyes of God. As we look at the relationships that we have, the first in chronology is with our parents. Before you are born, there's a relationship there. It's all one-sided at that point, as far as the relationship goes. But before you develop any other relationship with anybody, say, hey, I'm born and I've got a relationship. You know what, mom and dad, they were there first. And so the first relationship that we have in life is with our parents. When we look at the many relationships that we have, the first in significance is with our parents. The most important relationship that you have is with mom and dad. You say, well, I'm married now. It's with, what does God call himself? He is our heavenly, most important relationship we have is with our parents. Because if I can't figure out how to relate to my parents, I'm not going to figure out how to relate to my heavenly Father. It's important in its significance. And as we think of human relationships, the most foundational is that relationship of the parent and the child. Generally speaking, again, it's kind of like never say never. There are very few hard and fast rules that apply to everybody in every circumstance, in every place at all times. But generally speaking, if you have a person that has a shattered relationship with mom and dad, they probably have multiple other shattered relationships because they've never, and I'm not saying on which side the relationship was shattered. It could be from either direction. But if that one's not right, it's hard to get all the others right. There's probably others that are suffering. It's foundational, and we'll see that as we go. With that in mind, there are some subpoints there. The command doesn't limit itself to adolescent children. In Ephesians, and we'll see that verse as we go, Paul writes, children, obey your parents. In Exodus, nor in Deuteronomy, does Moses say, children, honor thy parents? It's a simple command. Honor your father and your mother. Directed to everybody. And so even adult children should honor their parents. Now, there's a difference here. It doesn't say in this passage, obey your parents. It says honor. And that's important to understand because you have a family of your own. You have a responsibility to that family. You can honor your parents, but that doesn't mean you have to ask their advice and do what they say every time. And so honoring is important even for adult children. And understand, and we saw this is kind of the idea behind it's foundational here, the family is the basic building block of society. And we'll see that as we go through the notes here. Before there ever was a government established, you had Adam and Eve and kids. There was a family first. And we need to understand that. And the deterioration of a society can be traced to the collapse of the nuclear family. As families have broken apart, shocking, I know, so has society. How we treat family, which is often behind closed doors, will be seen in how we treat others. Again, it's not a hard and fast rule. Some people are really good at being mean and ugly at home, and then they walk out and I won't say they act like a politician, but they walk out and they're ready to shake hands and kiss babies with everybody, right? But generally speaking, if you're ugly toward the people that are the closest to you, you're probably going to be ugly toward the people that aren't that close. So that's all of our introduction, laying some framework, some groundwork here. Let's look at the command itself. If you have your Bibles, go to Exodus chapter 12. Chapter 12. Let's try chapter 20, verse 12. One verse right here. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Pretty simple and straightforward. It is the one promise here, the one command that includes a promise, and we'll look at that half of it as well. First of all, we've got honor thy father and thy mother. Let's look at honor. First of all, what does it mean? Quite literally, it means heavy or weighty. Now, in our mind, we look at that and say, okay, how does that apply here? Well, I'm glad you asked. Basically, it means to give them the weight due their position or their role. And now it makes more sense, doesn't it? It's to honor them, to recognize the role given them by God. Now, we would never have at all, at any point in our lives, said, well, I wish I were in a different family. But we are in the family we're in by divine providence. We are right where God wanted us to be with the people that God wanted us to be with. And we need to understand that. And the parents we have are there because God put them there or put me here under them. Think of Romans chapter 12. As Paul is writing to the Romans, and he's talking about obeying the authorities that are over us. What does he say? The authorities there are ordained by God. Well, if the authorities are ordained by God, then the closest authority that I have, my parents, are probably ordained of God as well. That filters down. And so we need to understand and recognize the importance of the parents. Now, this nowhere here does it say they're perfect and they're always going to be right. The command doesn't have those limitations on it. The command simply says, honor thy father and thy mother. So honor, give them the weight, the respect due their position. Well, thy father and thy mother. First of all, your biological parents. Your literal mom and dad. They deserve the respect of our honor. But then there are practical parents. My term here, not necessarily the best, but it works. What if you have somebody that was put up for adoption? It's not their biological parents, but they've got parents that work with them each and every day, right? Or you have somebody who, for one reason or another, they're being raised by their grandmother. You have, in essence, a surrogate parent, right? Somebody who's filling the role of the parent. And there are other situations like that. With families as they are, you have stepmom, stepdad. Okay, you've got all of that in place. The responsibility of the child is to honor and respect those that are filling the role of the parent. You got the biological, and those that are filling that role or meeting that need. There's a responsibility there. Whoever is in that role deserves my honor and respect. Yeah, but I don't like them. Yeah, but I don't care. The command doesn't have conditions to it. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Yeah, but you don't know what they've done. Well, that may be, but if I do what's right, then God will bless me for doing what's right, even in difficult circumstances. And the command carries with it a promise. It's a couple-part promise, but it's important that we understand this. We have people who fill the position of parent, and we need to give them the honor, the weight due their position. That thy days may be long. Man has for millennia tried to find ways to lengthen his life. And he has come up with some really outlandish ideas. Cryogenics comes to mind. There are lots of things that man has done to try to lengthen life. And it's interesting. I don't remember. Josie was working on something the other. I don't remember what it was, if it was history or Bible something. And it was like, Josie, you need to understand, life expectancy back then was like 40. Okay. Life expectancy now is not 40. We live longer than man ever has since shortly after the Garden of Eden. Okay? I mean, even when you get to Abraham at, 120? When you look at it in relation to time, that's not that far after the garden in relation of time. So keep in mind, so we say, modern and middle history, man lives longer now than he ever has. Medicine has done wonderful things. And yet, we want to live longer. And as we live longer, we want to live longer and be more productive in that long life. We don't want to just, okay, that's not living. We want to do stuff. That thy days may be long. So the command carries a promise. And the promise is one that's desirable. Man's been hunting, searching, trying to find a solution for this for a very long time. And it's important that we understand that's what man's been trying to do. Again, medicine, vitamins, exercise, and all the outlandish things. Hire somebody to freeze you till things are perfected and then unfreeze you. None of it works, okay? People who take all their vitamins and exercise and eat right, you know what? They too shall one day, what does it say? It is appointed unto man once to die. They may, rather than waste away and die slowly, they may die quickly and suddenly, but all men will die. And so, thy days may be long. That's what we want. But it's that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord, the children of Israel, at this point, in Exodus 20, they are headed to the promised land. They are going to the land that had been promised them by God for years. They are here with Moses. They are looking back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And to Abraham, there was a covenant made. And the covenant was regarding this land, this promise, and that they would be many, that they would fill this land. And that's where they're going. And God says, obey, honor, and you'll have a long life on this land. So upon that land, what about it? There's a tangible, that's important to understand. Upon this land, they can, at the moment, they don't, but this is a land that they can physically encounter. This is not some nebulous idea that's out there, hey, you'll have a good life. How do you define good? What I think is a good life may be completely different than what you think is a good life. But the land which the Lord thy God has promised you, we have the same understanding of that. And that's what they're doing. God says, I will bless you if you keep this command. But it's not just upon the land, it's upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Don't forget, this land, you've done nothing to earn this. This land is from God. And they needed to remember that. They needed to understand that. So that's the command. Honor thy father and thy mother, that it may be well with thee, that you can have a long life on the land which God gives you. Well, what is the application here? How do we take and apply that within life today? First of all, our relationship with God comes first. And we need to remember and understand that. We have 10 commandments. The first 4 relate to this relationship. God didn't just put them all in a bucket, turn on the blender, and then pick them out one at a time, and, oh, this is the way they happen to fall. He says, make sure that you are right with me first and foremost. Because if I'm not right with him, I'm not going to be right anywhere else. The relationship with God comes first and foremost. Application. I need to respect authority. Now, this is relating directly to the authority within the home. But if I understand how to respect the authority in the home, I will be better suited to understand how to respect the authority outside of the home. If you have somebody that is very accustomed, they talk back and argue and yell and fight with their parents, how are they going to relate to their boss when he tells them to do something they don't want to do? They're going to get mad, they're going to argue, they're going to stomp out, they're going to have their badge taken away and be told not to come back. Where did that start? Well, back there when they were 4, 5, and 6. Okay? So we need to learn how to respect authorities. Our first level of authority is with our parents. Again, this goes back to what we've already seen. The closest authority in your life is going to be mom and dad. And if I can figure out, if I can put together the puzzle to help me understand how to obey mom and dad, how to honor and respect them, then I know how this works dealing with other people. When we fail to respect our parents, we learn that we don't need to respect any authorities. We've already seen this next. The family unit is foundational in society. Nations are built of communities. Communities are built of families. And so, with that in mind, strong families equal strong communities and strong nations. But the vice versa is also true. Weak families, busted families, result in busted communities and broken nations. Now, there are many, many, many non-traditional families, and that's unfortunate. And basically, what I mean by that is mom, dad, biological kid, for whatever reason. It could be a death in the family. It could be divorce in the family. We think of the world we're in today, it could be all sorts of interesting and odd things that don't have any place in the eyes of God, family. Okay? But there are lots of non-traditional families. Now, some of them can roll into being more of a traditional family. But regardless of the family setting, honor and respect are still essential. Because if I can't figure that out, society will suffer. If I can't figure that out, my ability to relate to authorities will suffer. Because I can pretty much guarantee that not every boss you have ever had or ever will have has been as perfect as you would like. You've probably had bosses, or maybe you currently have a boss, who help you to grow your patience each and every day. Okay? Um, you know what? When I can learn how to relate to the struggles in the family setting, I can learn how to relate to the struggles in the work setting or in the community setting. Honor and respect are essential, even in a family that isn't quite what I wish it were. Maybe non-traditional. Things aren't quite the way we wish they had been. But I can still do what's right now. So as we're looking at how do I take this command and apply it, the question that we ask then is, why is the family so very important? Go to 2 Timothy 3. 2 Timothy 3. We'll hit a few other verses now. 2 Timothy 3, looking at just a couple of verses here. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, and then it continues on talking about all the blessed traits of mankind. Or not. Maybe it's the ugly characteristics of mankind. But right there tucked in the middle is disobedient to parents. Why is the family so important? Disobedience fits right in with all these other things that are sign of a bad community, bad society, bad people. And it's in the family that personal values begin their formation. That does not mean that everybody from every family believes exactly the same about everything. You may have brothers and sisters that vote differently than you do. You may have brothers and sisters that see the Bible and the things of God differently than you do. But our personal values begin their formation within the family setting. So the family is important. We've mentioned this already a couple of times. The family is the basic building block of society. People, as they talk of communities, they will talk about streets and blocks of streets and sections within that community. Well, all of those are made up of homes and what's in that house. In that house is people, and in that house are people who live together that we call family. It's the basic building block. This is interesting. The parent-child relationship is the only lifelong relationship that we have. You say, well, but my parents passed away years ago. Yes, but you can still show them honor and respect today when you talk about them. The relationship is still there, even if the individual is not. It's the only lifelong relationship that we have. The parent-child relationship shapes a child's self-image. Now, I am not a huge self-esteem person, but self-image is different. If they cannot see themselves as being of value, not that they see themselves as being the most valuable, that's different. But do they see themselves as being someone of value, of being someone that's important? What does it say? For God so loved the world. And how often have we heard it said? Okay, that's you. Well, if we're going to talk about them as an individual, then they need to see that they were important to God. God sent his son for them. They need to know that they are loved of their parents. They need to know that they are important. We live in this age where young people want acceptance, and if they can't find it in the home, they will go somewhere else to find it. And then we can't figure out why. This is baffling to me and probably to you as well. I grew up in Upper Michigan, okay? I've said before, they're more deer and bear than people. Becky's been up there. You leave my town, which is small. I don't know how big it is. I want to say 5,000 people, maybe. The next town of any consequence, in one direction is an hour, in the other direction is an hour, And the other direction is an hour and a half. If you go the other direction, you're an hour out into Lake Michigan, so you can't go south. My town has a stoplight. The next actual stoplight that actually has red is probably an hour and 90 miles. They're blinking yellow lights between here and there. But seriously, I grew up in the middle of the Hiawatha National Forest. There's not much there. Everybody hunts and fishes. We didn't have school shootings. Back in the day, you had kids that would go to high school with the gun in the back window of their truck so they could go hunting on the way home. They never thought about shooting people. But as kids have lost value, they will find some way to get attention and be important to somebody. And all of that fits together. It goes together. The family is the incubator for shaping a child's attitude toward authority. If mom and dad grumble about the people in charge all the time, guess what? The kids are going to grow up grumbling about the people in charge. And mom and dad are in charge. Right? If that's all they ever hear, that's what they are going to mimic. Why is the family important? Because that's where the kids understand that they are valuable, primarily to God, that they serve a role, they have a place, that's where they're going to have their values begun. So then what does it mean to honor our parents? If the command simply says, honor thy father and thy mother, what does that mean? Well, we've already said. It means to give something very weighty, to give them our reverence, the respect that is due their position. Leviticus 19. Leviticus 19. Still in the Pentateuch, so we're in the law. Let's see what Moses has to say here. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, drop down to verse 3. Ye shall fear every man his mother and his father, and keep my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. I find that interesting. God's command, fear your father and your mother, keep my Sabbaths. They're tied together in one verse in our Bible. Even if we take them out of verses and break it apart, they're still one right after the other. Our relationship with mom and dad or a relationship with God. And they're closely tied. Well, what does it mean? Ye shall fear. Ye shall give them the reverence, respect, due their position. What does it mean? Reverence them. So, same question, what does it mean? Let's look at that in a practical way. Now, some of this, I mentioned before, some of this is from Robert Jeffress at First Baptist Dallas, because I don't know that I would have used the term sociological or anthropological in this discussion, but I also don't feel like reinventing the wheel when he's put it really well. And it is. There is a theological explanation or a theological need or a theological principle here. Our attitude toward our parents shapes our attitude toward God. We've seen this. It's the building block. It's foundational in society. It's foundational in my walk with God. God calls himself our heavenly Father. Luke 2:52. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Luke 2:52. I'm just going out on a limb here. What's at the beginning of Luke chapter 2? I'll give you a hint. It's a Christmas story. It's the birth of Christ. So before he gets very old, we have Luke 2:52 saying he's growing, and here's how he is growing. And it includes his maturing spiritually and socially. It's important to understand that. Our attitude toward our parents. And it's interesting, and we see this as we read in the Bible. We see his interactions with Joseph and Mary. More with Mary. She shows up in the picture longer. But at this point, and we're familiar with the story, when they go to Jerusalem and they're headed back, and where's Jesus? They go back and they find him in the temple. And his answer is simply, I have to be about my Father's business. This is not your problem. Right? Well, his answer is, I'm doing what I am called to do. It's not none of your business. He shows a right attitude toward his parents, and we ought to do the same. Sociological. We've talked about society that plays a role. First of all, there is the promise. We've looked at the promise. We're not going to go back and read it, but Exodus 20:12 is our command. Honor thy father and mother. God will give us a long life in the land that he's given us. Okay? The command is we will have an orderly life, an orderly society. We honor and respect, and that feeds out of the home into the community. We won't go here yet. Maybe we will as we wrap up. We'll see. But Ephesians 6:1, children obey your parents, but 2, honor thy father and mother. Let me check something here. Hold that thought. We will be back to that. Staying with the sociological part of this, we have the promise. There's a principle here. Order leads to order. Anarchy leads to, I could have said disorder. I could have said disorder leads to anarchy, but anarchy leads to anarchy. If I cannot figure out how to fit in and do what I'm supposed to, when I move out of the house, guess what? I'm not going to know how to fit in and do what I'm supposed to. Order will lead to order. Now, again, it's not a hard and fast perfect rule. You can have a good family setting, and you can have somebody that doesn't figure it out. I think of the Garden of Eden. Things were pretty good there. And Adam and Eve couldn't figure it out. Okay? But generally speaking, you're going to have a better chance of having young people who are well-adjusted and ready to have a profitable, beneficial part in society coming from a good home than from a dysfunctional home. It just works. Another principle here. God blesses a society that honors the family. Obey, the command was honor. God says, and I will bless. You have a command and a conditional promise. I don't know about you, but I would like to live my life in a way where God has his hand out, then his hand ready to swap me in the keister, right? So why don't I live my life in a way where he has his hand out to bless me? It just makes sense. There's a command, there's a promise. I want to take advantage of the promise. And yet we have so many people who don't want to live in such a way. They don't want to be told what to do by anybody, including their parents. And man is rebellious at heart. We know that. Theological principle, honor our parents. Sociological principle to honor our parents. There's an anthropological. Let's look at this one, Proverbs 20. Proverbs 20 and verse 29. And we find, the glory of young men is their strength, and the beauty of old men is the gray head. Appreciating elders maintains dignity in an undignified world. How does this fit into the study of anthropology, the study of man? All right? As we study this, as we look at this, as we look at mankind, what do? We don't wait for our parents to get old so we can shove them off to the side. Now I'm going to take their place. We give them honor and respect due them even in their old age. And it's important that we understand that. So if that's, okay, how do we honor? Well, hey, We have a somewhat similar question again. How do we honor our parents? For time, we will not get to the verses. The verses are there. You can look them up if you want to. Obey. How do we honor our parents? We obey them. How do we honor our parents? We respect them. We seek and listen to counsel. There is the phrase in English, experience is the best teacher. Now, modification of said phrase, your experience is my best teacher. If you put your hand on the hot burner and get burned, I don't need to do it myself to figure out that that's not a good idea. I went to the races Friday night. Friday was not a good day to go to the race. It was a good day to be at the races, but not to go to the races. There was traffic everywhere. So it was busy, busy, busy. So I took the route I never take to go to the races and went down Shermanstown. I went through down Simpson Ferry on the backside of Mechanicsburg. That was no faster. Finally get there, get the car parked. Often when I go, I will either text Becky or call to just let her know I'm there, yada, yada. I don't even have the door of the car closed. I'm getting out, grab my phone, and I hear the meeting of metal on the street, which is never a good thing, okay? I'm like, ooh, that's not good. She asked if I saw it. I said, no, I heard it. I couldn't see it because there were the cars in the way. Don't know what happened. Didn't go down there to look at it. My presence was going to do nothing for their benefit. They were having a bad day at that point anyhow. I don't know if somebody decided the stop sign didn't apply to them or not. Couldn't tell you. How do we honor our parents? We respect them. What do? We seek and listen to counsel. We look. I don't know. People drive, how to say this kindly, like idiots. You've been out and about, right? The red light doesn't, how many times have you gone through a yellow light because you're kind of in no man's land? You're like, man, I want to get out of the way. And then you realize that 2 cars behind you went through and there's no way it was yellow at that point. Part of seeking and listening to counsel is opening my eyes to see. How do mom and dad do things? Sometimes I learn how to do it, sometimes I learn how not to do it, but I need to be willing to seek and listen to counsel. I need to be willing to ask. There are accidents every day. When mom and dad drive foolishly, guess what their kids are going to do? They're going to follow example. How do we honor our parents? We support them. We support them. If you go to the passage here in Mark, this is where I have the means to meet the needs of my family. I say, sorry, this is all God's. Too bad. And God says, if you have the ability to help them, you need to be helping them. We obey, we respect, we support, and the idea here, we reverence. Leviticus 19 passage, we've already read verse 3. Fear your father and your mother, keep the Sabbath. So how do we honor? There's a whole lot. How do I honor? There's a whole lot tucked in here. Well, let's run through our conclusion and see if we can do this in a couple minutes. Got 5. We already saw this. Even adult children should honor and respect. This is not something that's limited to adolescence. I can show honor and respect to my parents even now, and I left childhood a long time ago. Okay? And yet I can honor and respect. When I'm talking to other people, they should know that I have honor and respect for my parents. It's not that I air all the dirty laundry to everybody that's within earshot. Okay? Even adult kids. Parents have a responsibility to set a biblical example. Okay, I'll acknowledge this is two-sided. If you go back to the Ephesians 6 passage, as Paul is writing to the church at Ephesus, he's got children obey your parents, honor thy father and thy mother. You get to verse 4, bring them up in the nurture and admonition. Okay, there's a lot tucked in there. Obedience is one thing, honoring is something completely different. If they were the same, then why does Paul say, obey your parents, honor thy father and thy mother? It's not an obedience isn't the concern. Honor is. I can obey without honoring. I cannot honor without obeying. Take the trash out. Take the trash out. I may take the trash out, but I left honor a long time ago. And so we need to honor. And that's, as we look at Ephesians, we see the difference there. Parents are kind of a hinge. As they demonstrate and develop right relationships with God, if I see my parents with a right relationship, that will impact me. I see my parents with the right relationship with the neighbors, I'll get a better idea how to relate to the people around me, because who's my neighbor? Way too many parents want to be pals and not parents. In a world that is, I think it was a Toys R Us commercial years ago. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid. Okay? Too many people live with the Peter Pan syndrome, where they don't want to grow up. And so now they've got teenage kids, and they want to be a teenager just like their kids. Their kids don't need another friend. They need parents. Because how are they going to learn how to relate to parents when the parents don't act like parents? Many parents want to be pals and not parents, and that's not what our society needs. Our society needs parents who are not afraid to say no. And yet, kind of an important word. Rebellion is expensive. And it carries a price that we often cannot afford to pay. If our young people learn how to rebel, when the bill comes, it's going to be more than they have. And if we cannot learn how to honor and respect our parents, then how are we going to honor and respect God? If we cannot obey man whom we have seen, how are we going to obey God whom we have not seen? There is an important role in the family in that parent-child relationship. And there's an important function. We need to understand the role and give them the honor and respect that's due their position. We need to understand the function and learn the lessons, and as parents be willing to teach the lessons that are there, because they're essential. We will talk, not everybody does, but we will talk about the collapse of society and how the fact that it's not what it should have been and not what it used to be. You know what the problem is? The problem starts in the home, bleeds into the church. So it doesn't start in the church. No, it starts in the home. When mom and dad are in church and an active part in participating, the kids are going to see that. They're going to be involved in that. Now, spiritually, obviously, it starts in the church. But as far as the society goes, when the mom and dad say, we want somebody who's going to tickle our ears and not somebody who's going to tell us what's right and wrong, they've just put their kids in a bad spot. And the lessons to be learned are, I'll just go where I can hear what I want to hear.